He works the back line. He's really energetic, he presses, and Chelsea are at their best when they press.
He's enthusiastic, his energy levels, he'll run, he'll chase, but his hold-up play was outstanding.
I think his confidence is very low, but one thing I will say of Palmer is there can be no question, no doubt that this guy is a top player and he will be back.
It's winning duels as well and winning back possession, and it's everything you want to see from a midfielder and everything we've wanted to see from Enzo Fernandez since he joined the club.
Well, even though it's been a bad run, he's stood up. And there's leadership qualities. Every game that I see, he's maturing. Every game.
Unfortunately, at Chelsea, there's a divide. The owners want one thing and the fans want another. We want success. They want money.
Well, as football fans, we are very fickle. If we were top of the table now, these protests would not be there.
Welcome to another episode of Inside Chelsea, the show for Chelsea fans by Chelsea fans. I'm Olivia Buzaglo and I'm joined by former Chelsea defender Jason Cundy and broadcaster and lifelong Chelsea fan Matisse Armani. Guys, finally, a win! I feel like, literally just before we started recording, I was saying we've been doing this show for the last however long, and the last 8 weeks, it just felt like...
This whole year?
It's just felt like we've done the same show, whereas today, the show is going to be different, Jace, because it wasn't just a win, it was a 4-0 win, it was comprehensive, it was comfortable, and it was exactly what we needed.
It was a little bit like a boxer just coming out, he needs a good victory. Yeah. So who are you going to pull out? You're going to pull out some bum. right? Just get the victory. That's what Southampton did for us last night. But we still got to talk about Villa as well, which we will. But a much-needed win, ruthless in front of goal, which is something I wanted to see, even though the punch bag was Southampton. We got the job done, and convincingly. It's not the sort of game that we could have just win 1-0 or 2-0.
Yeah.
We had to stamp our authority, get multiple goals, because that's not what we've been very good at of late. I'll take that. Everyone's got a plan. At least one. We've got Leicester coming up soon as well. Yeah. So hopefully there'll be another good workout.
I actually genuinely forgot, because I've been so caught up that we've actually won a game of football, that we actually lost a game that we haven't actually spoken about, and we will get on to. We might touch on Villa. We might actually forget about that. But Matisse, a win is a win, and like Jace says, I feel like these games, this Southampton game and the Leicester game on the weekend, have always come at the perfect time for Enzo Maresca.
Yeah, they have, because it's been a long rut we've been in, a lot of consecutive L's, whether it be the FA Cup, Premier League. Confidence levels are in the bin with some of these attackers. They really needed to, get their flicks and tricks out, get some stats on the board. And like you said, it's like a boxer. They've just, brought in Southampton. Everybody does this to Southampton. They're jousting with Derby County for the worst potential Premier League campaign ever. And we just got our opportunity to do what others have done as well. It doesn't change the overall kind of, concerns of what we need to address and how we need to improve and go forward with the more difficult fixtures. But hopefully it gives them some confidence to go into those fixtures a bit better.
What pleased you most about that performance then?
I think the fact that Neto consistently was up front again, considering his performance against Villa, where I thought he was really good, obviously got his assist. He works the back line. He's really energetic, he presses, and Chelsea are at their best when they press. It's not just about unlocking the door and playing that fantastic, perfect pass. It's also counter-press, winning the ball high up the pitch. Some of our best performances have come that way. And he just puts some injection of energy up there. And then we can follow suit with Caicedo's and Cucurella's getting about. So he gets to the right, he makes runs from there. He goes left, he makes runs from there. He took his goal well. And the fact that he then made the substitutions, bring on TYRIQUE George, and also put him up front to consistently keep that press and that intensity going. That was a nice continuation of what we saw at the start, because we know NKUNKU, he's struggled up there. I don't really want to see that again. He's moved him to the left, and he's stuck with that now. So he's been consistent, which is a big positive.
I don't know if Enzo Maresca has been watching Inside Chelsea, but Jason, we did say that we thought playing Pedro Neto up front was possibly the best option out of the options that Enzo Maresca had. And he's gone with it, and it's proved to be the right decision, because out of everyone that's played there, he's definitely looked the most effective, hasn't he?
Without question. I've seen him play there for Wolves, so this is a job I know he has done in the past. It's not his day job, but he can fill in. There is so much to love about his game. He's enthusiastic, his energy levels, he'll run, he'll chase. He chases lost causes. But his hold-up play last night was outstanding. He gets in front of defenders. He's an option. We'll talk a second about going long or passing that ball into the front man, because that option with NKUNKU is not there. That's not what he can do. But because Neto's a willing runner, his hold-up play is good, and he brings players around him, and he gives you a threat in behind. That was the big issue that we had, is with NKUNKU up top, that threat in behind is nullified. And as a centre-half, if you can see all the pitch in front of you, the game is easy.
Yeah.
It's when you start dropping and be worried about the space in behind, that's where space opens up, and that's where Palmer finds a bit more space. Enzo will find a bit more space. But, you know, I go back to the goal that we scored against Villa away. If you watch the link-up play or the movement between him and Palmer, he goes out and Palmer comes in. That's something that we really haven't seen with NKUNKU up top. So, big fan of Neto. So, yeah, well done him, and well done, Maresca, for finding a solution.
Yeah, it does feel like over the last... I mean, Chelsea's performances haven't been great, results haven't been great, but if there has been a bright spark, it does feel like that bright spark has come from Pedro Neto, wherever he's played, whether that's out on the right, out on the left, or through the middle.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you have to give credit to the manager, because we was asking for, you know, ideas and solutions and being proactive and trying to think of creative, you know, solutions for this team that were in bad form. Brighton, it felt like both Brighton games were basically carbon copy of each other, and there was no change. Despite the week gap between the games, coaching, training, opportunity to try new things, there was nothing different. Yeah. So then with that week again before Villa, to see all of those changes, we had Reece James in midfield, we have Neto up front, we have NKUNKU playing a bit deeper. He now contributes with a goal and assist. I don't think he's at his level that we purchased him from Leipzig. I don't think he's at a level where we can say, you know, against Arsenal and Tottenham, now he's going to be a game decider. But bit of confidence, bit of contribution, goal and assist, good counter press for the assist to Neto. And now, hopefully, again, we can start to see a bit more of the player that we purchased, because I think people forget just how good he was meant to be for us and how important he was meant to be for us. And he's become a little bit of a side project. But if he can even show a glimpse of the level we purchased, that's going to be a big uplift for the team, because we need it badly.
Yeah, and I thought he took his goal well. I thought it was quite brave, because Aaron Ramsdale was coming out and he put his head in there and he scored a good goal. The system, I think, doesn't help Christopher NKUNKU. I think the position he plays also doesn't really help. Where I suppose you saw the best of him at Leipzig, he hasn't really got that opportunity. He's probably not going to get that opportunity. But is this something for now him to build on? But he has to, Jace. He can't now stop, because
he's found himself in a position that where he wants to operate, one of the best players in the country is operating. That's Cole Palmer. I know Cole Palmer's form has dipped, as everyone's has, but his back to goal play, it's not his game.
Yeah.
He likes to see the pitch like that. He wants the ball on the half turn. When you're playing up top, you can't have the ball on the half turn, because the defender's up your backside and we're closing you down. So therefore you've got to receive with your facing your own goal. So it's not his game. And he will, you know, even having said that, when he plays out wide left, I find he drifts out, he can stay out of the game. He needs to operate centrally on the half turn. There's not that much space. He may have to drift in to pick up those spots, those positions in there. But look, I feel for him, because the injuries killed him. Yeah. You know, and he comes for a lot of money. I couldn't wait to see him, because I see a lot of him, the highlights of him in Leipzig.
Pre-season as well.
He is a super talent. Unfortunately for him, it probably feels like he might have to leave to get his career back on track, and because I think most other teams in the country will have him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there was links to Man United, wasn't there?
Bayern Munich as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd happily sell him to Bayern Munich. I'm not sure I'd be happy about selling him to Manchester United, to be honest.
I think with him as well is that not only is he on that wide left and he's kind of just got to circulate the ball, he's not someone that I'm looking at 1v1 blistering pace to go and attack his man. He can make that role his own, maybe by adding goals to the team. If there is build up on the right, make sure you are at the back post, add another body to the box. I think sometimes we don't do that with our wingers enough, like he got on the back stick for his goal. And then when you've got Enzo Fernandez coming from midfield into that kind of left channel as well, and we saw the amount of chances he created, it was just pass after pass. He put it on a plate for Palmer 2 or 3 times. How he didn't get an assist in that game is crazy. I thought he was our best player. He's been good throughout this run of poor games or poor results. He's still maintaining some sort of level and some sort of consistency. He's also coming into those attacking areas. So there really is no room for NKUNKU to even play next to Palmer in those areas, because Enzo's getting there. So, and then Cucurella as well, who also wants to be there and gets his goal. So yeah, it's very claustrophobic for NKUNKU. It's a bit suffocating.
But he's got to play, because Noni's still out injured. You know, Mishi is out for how was that being sampled? Does that get tested yet? Yeah. And Jackson's going to be out for the foreseeable future as well. So he's going to find himself in the team. He has to do a job. Yeah. Right? And they've come down the project, or certainly trying to find out his position up top. That we've seen that doesn't work. Neto has got that role for the time being. So look, he's going to get chances still. He'll play against Copenhagen, probably play against Leicester. So
and he'll probably play against Arsenal as well coming up. So I don't think Nicholas Jackson's going to be fit for that. You mentioned a few players, and we are going to get onto the likes of Enzo Fernandez, Marc Cucurella, and even Cole Palmer. Just first of all, on Palmer, Matisse, just feels like when Nicholas Jackson and Cole Palmer play, there's just like a telepathy where they know where each other's going to be. If one of them drops, the other one goes in behind, and vice versa. We've seen it so many times, them switching positions just because they know. Just Palmer and NKUNKU just don't have that same link up, do they?
No, we saw it against Villa actually, even prior to this match, where I think Palmer was on the edge of the box. He was about to play a pass, and he's put it in front of NKUNKU. NKUNKU maybe wants it to feet, and there's a miscommunication there, and there's a frustration because nothing's materialised from a move that really should have resulted in a shot. And it happened again in this game. You know, maybe runs are not being spotted, timings are off. There's definitely no chemistry there whatsoever. I think Palmer, obviously, the wider thing with him is he's not playing well. And in this game, it almost felt like in the second half we was playing around him. Like he was in the 10, he was, you know, in his position, but we weren't playing through him. We're used to playing through Palmer, and Palmer's like our go-to guy. But at times, the game's kind of passing him by in the second half. So, and then his shooting was really off. Some of those opportunities that he had, even at Villa, he could have lobbed the keeper. He would have lobbed the keeper. He didn't. He obviously took an extra touch. Ball gets stuck under his feet in this game, kind of snatches at chances. So I think his confidence is very low. But one thing I will say of Palmer is there can be no question, no doubt that this guy is a top player and he will be back. You know, he's carried this attack for 18 months. He has had, this is his first dip in his career. At City, he was a rotational player. He played some cup games, some last group games of the Champions League. This is his first time in his career that he's really had a dip. Outside of this, he's been brilliant for Chelsea. So I think he's just getting used to the responsibility now and trying to overcome this difficult patch. And I think he will. Just has to take some time.
Just on that, and one other thing that has been mentioned, but I just want to highlight it again. In the top 5 European leagues, I think he created the most chances, which were 33 since Christmas.
Yeah.
Not one was converted. So when you see the assist stat, for that stat to matter, someone's got to put it in the back of the net. So it's one thing setting things up on a plate. If the ball doesn't hit the back of the net, that assist stays in zero.
Yeah.
And he's been a victim of that, I'm afraid. Also, what he likes to do, he is so smart and so intelligent. He likes the ball he's always looking for runners. You think about the pass he plays at the Jackson or Neto. NKUNKU's not like that. Even Sancho's not like that. We need runners in behind. His first instincts, Palmer, 9 times out of 10, picks the right pass that hurts you the most. And the pass that hurts you the most is in behind. And those runners, they've dried up recently.
You said, Matisse, he'll be back. Cole Palmer actually obviously posted on Instagram saying, don't worry, I'll be back. So that's just sort of like he knows. I mean, we've sat on this show and said, you know, he shouldn't be getting any criticism because he has carried Chelsea for the last season and a half. Yeah. But he does know from that Instagram post, Matisse, that he knows that he's not maybe had been himself the last 6 to 8 weeks, regardless of his teammates perhaps not putting in chances that he's created. But in front of goal, like you say, some of the chances, especially in the Southampton game, I would have put my life, right? I genuinely would have put everything. The 2 chances I'm talking about is the one where he was on the right-hand side of the box, which any time you would have seen just put in the far corner, and the one where he was in front of goal. I would have expected that ball to roll past Aaron Ramsdale at 2 miles an hour. Yeah. Like, that's just Cole Palmer, no power, just placing it into the bottom corner. Yeah. And he's snatching at things at the moment. Is it just a lack of confidence, do you think?
He might be in his own head. I think he knows that he's not in great form, and he knows that the bar and the standard that he set is so high that when he's not hitting that, he's disappointed in himself. I remember games where he'd scored 2 goals and he was on a hat-trick and he'd take a right foot shot just wide of the post. He's like, damn. Or that might have been the 4th goal out, you know, and he's already on a hat-trick. So he holds himself to a very high standard. He knows he's a top player. He's already shown he's a top player, not just for Chelsea, but for England. He had a couple of cameos in the Euros, semi-finals. Yeah. He's assisting Watkins. He's scoring in the final against Spain. So there's no question the talent. It's just, this is the first time he's going through this. And like I said, that comes with experience. Every top player has gone through a difficult patch. Every top player has gone through a bad run of form. You just have to learn how to get out of it, and he will.
And it was really annoying, sorry, Jace, just to say, because he was my fantasy football captain. And I was like, do you know what? Southampton at home, perfect chance. 4 goals, not a single goal or an assist. Absolutely fuming.
If you put that Cole Palmer that we saw back in October, November, December, you put that Cole Palmer into the last 2 games, he scores 3. Yeah. And you're right, snatching is the right word. He's just not stroking. Cole Palmer strokes balls at the back of it, places them. He's now putting a bit more power. He's gone safe. That one where he hits Ramsdale, it goes straight at the body.
Yeah.
And that why? Because strikers do that, hit the target. as opposed to just stroke it into the net, which he'll be back. I'm not the least bit concerned, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Leicester at home on the weekend, so you would think that, again, that's another perfect opportunity for Cole Palmer. Will I captain him again? I'm not so sure. I might stick with Mo Salah. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can go through that again. It's actually painful watching it when it's not just your team, but it's like when you've got...
It's double.
Oh, it's double whammy. Every goal I wanted to celebrate, but I was like, no, Palmer isn't involved. Matisse, do you think, obviously there was some talk. I think the one thing I do want to say is that Chelsea are fourth. At the time of recording, obviously there is Premier League games tonight, so that could change. But at the time of recording, Chelsea are fourth. And I think people are forgetting about that because there has been some talk sort of prior to this game, maybe after Aston Villa, Matisse, that he might be distracted because there was reports, if Chelsea don't get top four, that he might be thinking about leaving the club. I mean, to be honest, having worked with Cole Palmer, having spoken to Cole Palmer, having watched him play football for the last year and a half, 2 years, and been absolutely brilliant, I don't think anything phases him. So I don't think that would be on his mind at all. Would you agree?
I think, well, first of all, he's locked into a lifetime contract. So that's the first thing.
So he's not going
Legally,
anywhere.
he's obligated to be here. And if we were to stand firm, he couldn't leave. Unless he was to really kick up a fuss and make it a difficult situation for us, which I don't think he'll do. It more comes down to the ownership, and if they were to be tested with say, £100 million bid from a big club, what do they do? Because we've spoken about, profit margins and sell-on value, and they paid 40. If they were to receive 100, what would they do? We don't know. The backlash would be incredible if they accepted a bid from anyone for Cole Palmer right now. He's a Chelsea favourite, fans' favourite. But that's uncharted waters for this ownership. We don't know what they would do if a best player was on the market. The other thing I'll bring up is the fact that his and all of the squad's wages are directly, they're directly attached to Champions League qualification. So if they don't make Champions League, they don't make as much money on their contract. And that's obviously us safeguarding the finances and trying to make sure that we, run in accordance to where we are in terms of revenue and what we qualify for and how much money we bring in. And I think it's smart. However, you've got to push for Champions League because players like him over the last 18 months are playing at Champions League level, are deserving of it, minus the last month. Same with Caicedo, etc. And if we're not, and it goes back to the window in January, if we're not pushing at every single possible turn to try and get Champions League football, they'll look at it like, hey, I'm making less money because you guys are not pushing to be in Champions League. Yeah.
Matisse mentioned 100 mil there. I mean, I'm right now sitting here thinking more than that. I'm not accepting £100 million for Cole Palmer. I'm just really not. But what do you think if Chelsea don't get Champions League, which could come down to 5th place, remember? So that's finishing 3rd, 4th or 5th. Third, maybe slightly optimistic. But what fee do you think would almost make the Chelsea ownership?
I think the owners have shown that if the price is right, they will definitely consider it. But what does that price look like? Well, there has to be a 1 there before we even start negotiating.
I think it's got to be a 2. No,
but let's put our big boy pants on here and talk realistically about what football's like. If someone comes in and makes £150 million...
£115?
£115 million, a Freudian slip there, but someone's going to listen. I mean, people are talking about Isak, right? I speak to Newcastle fans on the Sports Bar, right? They're quoting 170, 180 million. Look, if someone comes in with £100 million offer for Isak, they will be interested. They will, because money talks in this world. In particular, you think about the financial fair play and so on and so forth. But I don't think Cole Palmer will want to leave right now. But there's a reason he left City, because he's an ambitious boy. And if City couldn't offer him what he wanted at that time, first team football, he goes to Chelsea. We now have to match his ambition to ensure that he and others around him, by the way, because there's a lot of talented young players there, we have got to match their ambition. Look, fingers crossed it's Champions League football. Who knows? But I mean, let's not talk about that yet. The transfer window's shut as far as I'm aware.
Just to add to that, though, I think Newcastle would find it and Chelsea would find it far easier to reject bids for their best players if they qualify for Champions League because that revenue is there.
Of course.
And I think Chelsea fans, what they'll look at if that bid comes in for Cole Palmer and there isn't Champions League football, they'll say, well, you've not maximised on the revenue for Champions League, but you also don't have a front of shirt sponsors still. And that's a loss of money as well. So you can't almost compensate for the lack of money coming in those two areas, which is directly, your responsibility, and offshore it to Cole Palmer sale, which will actually make the team far worse and less likely to qualify for Champions League again.
Just on that length of contract, they future-proofed Cole Palmer, something that Liverpool didn't do with Trent.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's no way that Chelsea would ever get in a position where he'll be
Trent's
leaving on a
£100 million
free.
player, right?
Yeah, still, yeah.
£1,800 million
Yeah.
player. He's going to walk for nothing.
Yeah.
God, I mean, trying to imagine Chelsea without Cole Palmer
There's three of them.
is something. Yeah, I mean, Liverpool. Yeah, it's something I don't want to think about.
No.
Like you mentioned, Jace, there is a lot of very good, talented youngsters in this side, and when I think of Enzo Fernandez, it's really weird because I think of him as like a more experienced member of the squad when he's still only early 20s. He's still a very, very young player, but
he's won a World Cup. I think that's probably why you elevate him.
Yeah.
Because he's picked up the biggest
And
trophy.
he only actually played for Benfica for like 6 months before we signed him as well. So actually, like in terms of Europe's top 5 leagues, like he hasn't actually played that much football. I suppose he's been at Chelsea for a fair while now.
There is something about his body language at the moment, which Matisse made the point earlier that even though it's been a bad run, he's stood up. And there's leadership qualities every game that I see that he's now displaying on the pitch because we don't have a huge amount of leaders in this squad. But I'm looking at him now, and I saw him after the Villa game, how broken he was. He was absolutely distraught, the fact that we didn't pick up at least the point that we deserved. And there is something about his performances now. I think he feels though this is the level I've belonged at now. But I belong at. He had injuries last season. He had that hernia, which he played for a lot of time with, and I think that probably is why his form dipped last season. But he's maturing, every game.
He is, and I mean after that Villa game, he actually looked like he was close to tears, Matisse. And when you think about this team, and we've spoken about it for however long now, you need players to step up, and it feels like. I don't know how many players you can say this about, just because how many players we haven't really seen it from, but it felt like it really hurt him.
Yeah.
It did,
like out of all of the players, it felt like actually that result, he knew. He almost felt what the Chelsea fans at Villa Park, he took it personally.
Yeah, and look, he has a lot of potential. We knew that when we signed him. Like the quality that the level that he can get to is Real Madrid level, in my opinion. That's what I thought when we purchased him. I still think that now, and it's nice to see that he's, like you say, he's taken almost responsibility and saying, actually, I am going to set a standard here and a precedent, and I'm going to make sure I turn up because this team need me, and I can't just be part of it. I need to be one of the main guys. We saw that with the goal return he was giving us earlier in the season when he was getting further forward into the box. We saw that now with the passes that he played last night. Even though he didn't get the assist, he definitely deserved it. If he just keeps playing like that, we will never talk about the transfer fee. And that's the best thing you can hope for Caicedos and Enzos and players of this price tag. If you just never have to mention it, that means they're doing a great job.
I mean, he's the first Premier League player to create 5 chances, win 5+ duels, and win possession 5 times in a Premier League game multiple times this season. The only player to have done all those things twice. He did it against Bournemouth, and then he did it obviously in the Southampton game as well. So it's not even just going forward. And we've all been saying, Jason, we need Enzo to contribute, and I think he contributed yesterday without actually contributing, if that makes sense. On paper, he didn't contribute, but we saw the effect he had on the game. But it's winning duels as well and winning back possession, and it's everything you want to see from a midfielder. And everything we've wanted to see from Enzo Fernandez since he joined the club.
What is Enzo Fernandez? What's his best position? What's his best role, right? Because that's a big question there.
I don't know if I can answer that.
Personally, I like him higher up the pitch. I prefer him higher up the pitch. I like the role that he played against Villa, where he was number 10. Then you've got a problem because what do you do with Palmer? Well, Palmer had to drift out to the right. So you kind of compensate a little bit. He's a number 8 for me. Defensively, I don't whether he is quick enough to cover that ground.
He's not.
That's Caicedo's job for me. But higher up the pitch, I think he can impact by winning the ball higher. I don't want him running back towards his own goal, trying to defend. That's not his strength. For me, it's going forward when he sees the pitch, when he receives the ball on that half turn we were talking about and gets his head up. That's where he does his best work. Arriving in the box, the goal that he scored against Villa, could have had another one, by the way, and perhaps should have done.
Oh, the one where
the header.
The header. But I liked also the one where he curled. I mean, I thought it was in. Head to the box.
Just over the
As he
bar.
kicked it, I was like, that's in, and then it just
exactly
went
what
over.
he's trying to do. But I think that's Enzo for me. He's a number 8, arriving on the edge of the box in support of either the front man or Cole Palmer.
Is that his best position?
I think as well, just to add to this as well, when Jorginho was here, he used to get a lot of tackles and interceptions as well, but we knew that he wasn't necessarily an anchor or he wasn't quick and he couldn't cover the ground. I think Enzo covers the ground better than him, but the point is that when we're counter-pressing as a unit and the gaps are a lot closer and the space is, really condensed, it's a lot easier to nitpick and get in those tackles and interceptions. That's where he's racking them up. If you're asking him to just defend transitions and he's got to cover, 20, 30, 40 yards. That's when it's like, it becomes a pain for him. That's when he gets, blown away, or he, gets barged aside. And then we look really out of sorts and Caicedo is exposed. So it's just about how we use him. I do like him getting further forward because I do want to see him getting more goals. I do want to see him getting assists. I think he's capable. I think if he didn't show the Villa free kick last season and little, ounces of quality in front of goal, then I'd be like, okay, maybe he does need to be like a regista, or he needs to be like a deep line playmaker. But I think he can get goals, he can get assists, so let's see it.
Fair play to Enzo Maresca because he has switched it up. He switched it up against Villa. And one player we saw next to Moises Caicedo, who I wasn't sure we would ever see next to Moises Caicedo in midfield fully, was Reece James. Is that the best option, do you think, Jason? If you are going to play Enzo further up the pitch, you don't want him sat next to Caicedo. Who sits next to Caicedo? I
think it depends who you play against. I think, the next game I'm thinking that he might consider that is Arsenal. Respect your opposition.
What, Reece next to Caicedo?
Well, he may well. Reece, he didn't play last night, Reece, right? So it's still managing the minutes, making sure Reece will have, I'm guessing, he'll want him in at least one of the Copenhagen games. Because that's a big game for us now all of a sudden. We haven't even touched on that, how big that competition. That might be our only route back into Europe, by winning that competition. So I think it depends on the opposition. But also, as I pointed out, if you're moving Reece into there and you want Enzo higher, where does Cole play? We don't play with 2 10s. I mean, Cole can drift in from that right-hand side, but...
He can play anywhere, though, can't he?
He can. And we might see something like that against Leicester. That might be... He might suck it and see. He might try something different. But there are the options that you have, there's not a lot of them. No. There's not a huge amount. Lavia still isn't back fit. I mean, I can't... So when is he going to come back? Because in the middle of the park, we're quite light still. Yeah. We really are light in that middle of the park. So there's only 2 options for me. Either Enzo plays alongside Caicedo or Reece comes in there. Other than that, don't we see much of the fit players we got.
Well, last night we saw Cucurella, and Cucurella always covers everywhere. So he comes into midfield next to Caicedo, but he'll also go into the box and get a goal, and it was a great finish. It was a wonderful finish from him from the cutback. But I think with Reece, my only concern is, can his body handle playing in midfield? Because I think against Villa in the first half, he showed, he's more than capable technically to do it. We saw it at Wigan when he was out on loan, and he really became the fulcrum epicenter of that team. He was the captain and whatnot. But it's just whether or not his body can handle all of the twisting, the turning. You've got to be everywhere at once, and it's a lot of work. It's an engine room. Whereas when you're in that back 3, it's like, Reece, you're strong, you're great on the ball, you can step up with the ball facing forward, and you can just pull the strings and play that kind of Aspilicueta, Conte back 3 role. Still get forward in that space and play that cross, etc. That's where I'd still look at him playing on a consistent basis. The only reason why I'm talking about the midfield as a viable solution is just because we're short and we haven't addressed what we needed to address in that midfield in January, and that is why we're looking at these solutions. But is it necessarily a good idea? I'm not so sure yet.
Well, obviously, we've got Copenhagen, couple of games against them in the Conference League, and obviously Leicester. We've got Arsenal fairly soon. Now, that is, that's a massive, massive, massive game. Yeah. Who would you, for that game, if we're looking, I know it's quite a way ahead, but obviously that Leicester, I think you could play anyone next to Moises Caicedo, and I think we would be fine. Yeah. For a big game like that, who would you want to see next to Caicedo?
I would probably go, I'd take Gusto out. I don't think his defending this season is at the level where I'd trust him away at Arsenal. I'd probably put Reece at centre-back next to the Tosins and the Colwells, and I'd have Cucurella coming into that midfield with Caicedo, and I'd let him kind of, because he just gets about so well. His intensity levels are great. He's tenacious, counter-press. I'd have him in there and just have them to cover as much ground as possible and construct it that way.
The only thing with that is that, I know, like we say, Enzo Maresca switched it up against Villa. Gusto was a little bit higher, a little bit wider, and he gave us another option. Now, if Reece plays right back, do we get that?
No.
We don't get that option, and I think that means we're fairly limited in terms of going forward.
Against Arsenal, Reece has got to start. The question is now, where do you start Reece? He might start Reece at right back, and then naturally Cucurella comes in, and that back 3 is a Reece, a Colwell, a Tosin, probably.
Yeah. Potentially.
So that back 4 then becomes a 3. That's an option for him. Then you've got Enzo in playing alongside Caicedo. Enzo then can be pushed on because Cucurella steps in and is that anchor alongside Caicedo. Then he goes and joins Palmer. That feels quite nicely balanced because it's something we're used to. However, it becomes very predictable.
Yeah. Too easy to play against.
Because, yeah, I mean, Reece can come inside. We've seen Reece do it. But Cucurella is the engine. He's number 8 again, isn't he?
Yeah.
Cucurella.
Yeah.
He really is a bundle of energy up and down that pitch. So, look, let's get through Leicester. Let's see what he does. We might have a clearer indication as to what he's thinking about against Arsenal and what we see certainly against Leicester, maybe the 2 Copenhagen games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think we are fairly certain of now is that Jorgensen is back in goal. I know he made that mistake against Villa, but he came back in for the Southampton game. Just first of all, I felt a little bit nervous when he had the ball at his feet yesterday, Jace, and this is something that Enzo Maresca is persisting with. He literally came out and said, my message to Philip was, if you play a long ball, I will change you. So that's where it's coming from.
Or are you
not convinced?
Look, I understand what he's saying, but what is a long ball?
It's a very good question.
What is a long ball? Because for me, it's basically playing the ball upfield to get the ball furthest away from your goal.
To like no one as well. You're just kicking it. You're just kicking it.
Right,
yeah.
but what Southampton did last night, they went man for man. And when you play against a team that's man for man, you can not cheat, but you can have one player in between 2. Yeah. So if that ball is played out there, I go across, I'm squeeze over there, and everyone comes around me. Jorgensen didn't have a lot of options. Did not have a lot of choice. And the options that he did have were risky passes. The ball over the top into Pedro Neto, he played a couple of times, but that's a long ball. Or is it a long pass?
This is the thing.
Yeah, I don't necessarily buy into this because I've seen Alisson do it, I've seen Ederson do it, that ball over the top into space, the goal they scored against us when Haaland goes in behind Trevor, right? You telling me that's a long ball? Yeah. No. That is a well-placed pass into space.
So either he doesn't trust the goalkeepers that he has at his disposal to play that, because that's 2 quality long-range passes you're talking about in terms of the goalkeepers at City and Liverpool, but maybe he doesn't trust them to play that accurate pass and therefore he wants to play the safer short pass. Or, and I think this definitely has something to do with it, the profile of players we have up front, it's not like the days of old where we had a Costa or a Drogba, where you know if you go long, you're keeping the ball because they're going to hold it up, they're going to chest it down. Even Marcos Alonso, when he was in the back 3 and he's playing as a wing-back, you could go out left. We used to do it all the time. He'd win the first header, and then we start from there. But because this team doesn't have that kind of aerial threat in the forward line, he's kind of saying, you have to play out from the back into the defenders because we want to keep the ball. So I think it's almost the tools that you're given necessarily dictates what you want from your team, which is normal. If we were to give him different tools, then I would like to see if he was still consistent with that.
But Neto showed last night he can hold the ball up. He's a physically strong boy. He's so quick. His first touch is good. His back to goal is better than NKUNKU.
But can he do it against Saliba and Gabriel against Arsenal?
I'm not saying bring the ball up here.
Yeah.
Because that's a battle he's not going to win.
Yeah.
I'm talking about getting those balls in.
Drive it through.
Absolutely. Play those passes into that midfield because I looked last night from my vantage point. There was a lot of those balls that Jorgensen could have played, and you can almost feel and hear his mind ticking. I can't play that. I can't play that. I can't play. Where do you go? Sometimes that long pass, I don't say long ball, is a good option. Use it.
It's whether the confidence is there after the Villa mistake as well, which was a big howler at the end, conceding the last minute. The ball just kind of went under his armpit. I wonder, because the manager coming into this game, he said, after the Villa game, I'm not sure who my goalkeeper will be because obviously he's maybe checking on Jorgensen's kind of mental state after the mistake and how he recovers from that. And then before this game, he says, no, he will be the goalkeeper. So I think there was a moment of there wasn't clarity on who was going to be the keeper coming into this game because of that error, and because both the keepers are suffering from almost lack of confidence because they're both making errors. So maybe that's why he's just not playing those long passes as well.
Yeah, and I think we'll continue to see what Jorgensen did in the Southampton game, and we'll continue to see that for the rest of the season or for however long he is in goal. A couple of youngsters came on yesterday. We've seen Tyrique George a fair bit this season.
Yep.
He became the youngest Chelsea player to assist a Premier League goal since Callum Hudson-Odoi against Newcastle back in October 2019. Are you impressed with him when he came on?
I've been impressed with him this season. Yeah. You know, I've seen every game that he has played. He's had some good performances in the Conference League. He's had 1 or 2 cameos. I don't think he's a million miles away from getting a start. Genuinely.
Conference League? What do you mean Premier League start?
Premier League?
Yeah.
I don't think he's a million miles away because those wide areas, all of a sudden people saying how stacked we were, and we were, all of a sudden now you're going, well, actually, when you think about the options, there's not an obvious... If Neto's playing down the middle, that frees up another space in those wide areas.
Yeah.
So I would like to think that on what he has done when he's come off the bench, I'd like to think that he must be going through Maresca's mind as a start.
He had a good cameo against, I think it was Brighton, but then also...
Yeah, he's the only one that took on Lamptey, right?
Yeah, when he came on, he went up front. So maybe he might be the backup striker. You know, so... Because he obviously, he had that shot, high and wide. It wasn't the worst effort in the world. Then he gets the assist. I was really hoping, okay, when are you going to release this? What are you going to do? Squares up the defender, perfectly timed Cucurella, waits it, picks him out, doesn't just spam it across the box, just precision, you know, really mature assist. And I think, look, we got a lot of games coming up. We've got players that are out. He's definitely going to get opportunities. He just has to do his best to take them. And if he does like to take a shot. I remember when he's first coming in those Conference League games, he was taking shots, left foot, right foot. He doesn't care. As soon as he gets a sight of goal, he'll take a shot. If he can add a little bit of goals, it makes a massive difference because we know Sancho isn't getting those goals at the moment. So that will be something that he has up on him.
I remember, I think one of his first touches when he came on was literally on the edge of the box. A shot, it went high and I think it just went over. But I was like, yeah, fair play. Getting the ball, his first instinct is towards goal. Have a shot if you can. Leicester at home, maybe that would be a good time.
Yeah, like to think
him.
At least going through Maresca's mind.
Yeah, definitely. And Amugu as well came on. Now, obviously, when Chelsea signed him from St Etienne in January, I think it was early February, we actually signed him. Enzo Maresca actually came out, honestly, and said, you know, we've bought him. He's only going to train with us. He's not going to play. He's not here to help us right now. He's going to go to Strasbourg next season. Yeah. But he came on, and it felt like maybe it was a good time for him to just get some minutes.
It's an easy sub to make, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the game's over, the game's won.
Yeah.
You look at your bench, you want to freshen things up. It's an easy decision to make for that one, for me. But it's needs must because Lavia's not fit. You know, we're a little bit bare in that middle area as we've already highlighted. So he might be looking as you know, who knows? There might be another role for him against Copenhagen off the bench. Who knows? But yeah, it probably more evidence of the sign of the times that we're in that midfield area because of the injuries we're still suffering.
Yeah, he was a bit nervous when he came on. He had some loose touches and
there
was a time where he got in Cole Palmer's way or he tried to stop the ball. Cole Palmer
was take off him, didn't he?
dribbling past him. He's like, I'm going on a dance here. I do think this is one of those special cases where it's an easy sub, like you said, but I don't think we're going to see him in those Premier League games, those big games, those tougher games. I don't think he'll trust him in those moments. Conference League, maybe off the bench, but again, the quality of the teams are going up. The importance is becoming, you know, more ruthless now. Knockout stages, there isn't a league phase, so he's not going to take as many gambles in the Conference League as he did in the early part of the season. So I still do believe that what they said is true. He probably won't play much games. He will just be there training, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. We will. And obviously Conference League as well. Real Betis and Fiorentina are probably two of the best teams we could face. And we are actually on the other side of the draw, which means we probably only face one of them if and hopefully when we get to the Conference League final. So that's also positive as well. On last week's show, we spoke about the protests that were happening ahead of the Southampton game. Let's get the thoughts of some of the fans who were at Stamford Bridge last night. Some who went to the protest and others who didn't. Our reporter Nina spoke to them about the game and what happened before it.
We're outside Stamford Bridge. Chelsea have just beaten Southampton 4-0 at home. What do you make of that performance?
Listen, we got a win. It's what we've needed. It was a 4-0 win as well. There are still areas that need to improve. I think defensively, even though we did keep a clean sheet, I feel like they were getting in behind way too much for my liking, considering, with all due respect to Southampton, they're not that good. And I feel like players like Palmer having an off day, but listen, that's normal, he's a human being, but his shooting is way off today. We won 4-0. I'm happy because this is a much needed 3 points. We are now back in the top 4 for now. Let's just hope we can build on that.
I will be happy if we do this 3 times in a row. If we do this and get a consistent run of form. If we have more than one clean sheet, then I will be happy. Until that point, we cannot be content with what we've seen. We have to admit that this paper's over the cracks, and unfortunately, although some Chelsea fans are very happy, there's a lot more problems at Chelsea than people realise.
Were you at the protest today?
I'll be real, personally, I thought it was a bit of a joke, if I'm going to be honest. The real protesting would be boycotting, because these American owners, they speak money. That's their language. So if we boycott and don't turn up to games, don't buy merch, things like that, don't feed their pockets, then they'll have to listen. A bunch of people shouting and screaming, in my opinion, doesn't do much.
All they're interested in money. So the investment they put in to the club, what have they got back out of it at the moment? they've got very unrest fans. They haven't actually got a team they want yet. So they've got to look at themselves thinking, why have we hired these sporting directors? That's their fault. That's why we're in the pickle. The fans not happy. They've just hired the wrong people. They've listened to the wrong people.
It was definitely a better turnout than I think I expected. I think maybe a lot of Chelsea fans expected maybe not as many people to turn up. Probably a few hundred there. Not bad. I think the message was put across. It's right that fans voice their frustrations, not happy with what's going on in terms of the recruitment, in terms of the way that the club's operating, not signing experienced players, no winners, no leadership, the winning culture sort of being eroded from the football club. So it was right for fans to voice their dissatisfaction. Whether it does anything in the long run or not, only time will tell. But you've got to keep the ball rolling, keep the momentum going. And yeah, I thought it was a positive for sure. It was definitely went better than expected, and they'll definitely be aware that that's taken place. It's been picked up by the media and stuff. So let's see where it goes. But a positive for sure.
I would change the owners. I would bring in owners who care about the club. I would bring in owners who don't sell tickets and take tickets off their own fans. I would bring in owners who don't come from a private equity background. I'd bring owners who bring their own money into the club, have their own risk. I would have a scenario where the owners feel connected to the fans in the sense that they want the same thing. Unfortunately, at Chelsea, there's a divide. The owners want one thing and the fans want another. We want success. We know they don't want success. We know they don't care about success. I'm not going to ask you to say it. They want money. And that's what I would change.
Right, reaction just to those protests. I mean, Matisse, I'm going to come to just you first.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it felt like I wasn't quite sure what those fans at Stamford Bridge before the Southampton game were actually protesting about.
I think there's because there's quite a list of issues, whether it be the sponsorship on the shirt and the revenue there, whether it be the squad building and the way that we've constructed the team and the holes and the gaps that are still in that squad, despite the amount of money spent. And that obviously leads to the sporting directors and then the ownership and the amount of stockpiling and young players that we've brought in, and we've seen it with Washington's or Datra Fofana's and this other kid that we signed for Southampton that we just brought up. So there's quite a wide range of issues, and then it goes to Vivid Seats and Todd Bowley. So people don't feel like the club is being run in the way that it needs to put the fans first, which is to win trophies, to be able to go to the games and fair ticketing prices, and to just push Chelsea to the upper echelons of football again. And I think people feel like there is almost like from Clearlake Capital and the investors, there is a side mission, which is to kind of, make money out of the club, whether that will be, selling off assets, whether that will be flipping players, making profit margins there. I still believe that the best way to make money is to be the best, whether that's go to Champions League finals, win Premier League titles, win cups, win trophies. I think that's where you'll make the most money. But that's some of the issues that were raised. The reason why I personally didn't go and maybe there was a confusion about what was going to be targeted is that I feel like, for me personally, I would have gone down the route of maybe more towards the directors, who I think have maybe mismanaged some of the money that has been spent. And that's why the squad is a bit bare and in some positions, in some places. I think you could look at maybe Egbali, but Todd Bowley was kind of made the face of it, which I'm not too in line with, considering the fact that I think after the first 6 months of him being sporting director, first coming to the club, he then took a backseat, and it was Egbali that was kind of pushed to maybe go more in that direction. So yeah, there was a lot going on. The turnover time was very quick. It just kind of happened. But listen, the fans that went there, credit to them for voicing their opinions. 200, 300, I think, were there. They have every right to voice their opinions and to hold the club accountable for, look, you've come in, you have stripped the club bare of what it had previously in terms of players, in terms of staff, people behind the scenes. You do have to be held accountable for the direction, and not to, I think a lot of the briefing and the quotes and the reports that have come out in regards to Chelsea, we're ahead of schedule if we qualify for the Champions League, and kind of trying to almost manipulate and change the narrative of what we should be doing this season, which is to be in the Champions League, and we should be trying to win a trophy, and that's the bare minimum. So I think when people felt like they're trying to almost move away from that, they have every right to kind of respond and retaliate a little bit.
Yeah, Jace, obviously a few things the fans says. I mean, Matisse, you summed it up perfectly, but so the only thing the owners will listen to is if it hurts their pockets. Now that means that, well, not going to games, but that's never going to happen. You're never going to get fans that don't go and watch Chelsea in protest of the ownership. That's just very, very unlikely to ever happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, well, as football fans, we are very fickle. If we were top of the table now, these protests would not be there. The results have been disappointing, and I understand the frustration because mistakes have been made. I think if you spoke to the owners, they'll be the first to admit the fact we signed Koulibaly, Aubameyang and Sterling in the first window, and by less than a year later, they're trying to get rid of them. So there's no doubt about it. They've made some mistakes. The sale through the football club was kind of rushed because of what happened with Roman, and the club has gone through a huge amount of distress in the last 2 years, 3 years. It's 3 years this month actually that things changed for Chelsea Football Club because of what happened in Ukraine, and the club has changed, and we're a totally different looking football club. The business model is very, very different. Look, the fans have every right to protest. We live in a democracy, and they're entitled to do that. My point of view, I'm interested in what goes on the pitch. I'm interested in finishing top 4, as high up the table as we possibly can, and continue to challenge for trophies. This can still be a very good season for Chelsea.
Those issues outside of the pitch, they're relevant and they're important. And I think it's important to consistently badger them about those and make sure that, those things are rectified. But like Jay said, the stuff that happens on the pitch, for 99% of people, that's what dictates their feelings and their emotion towards the club and the team. If we are winning because that squad has been assembled correctly with the money allocated, which was, it had to be spent. That was part of the takeover with Rain Group and Roman, that the 1 billion had to be invested in 10 years. It was invested in record time. That's their decision. But if that squad building from the directors had been done properly, in my opinion, even with the restraints and restrictions of age and wage structure, which I think is a wise thing to do because it keeps players motivated to perform and keeps them trying to push for the highest performance, I don't think we'd be in this predicament.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose only time will tell what happens from now until the end of the season and whether Chelsea fans' opinions will change. Let's end on a positive, because you reckon 3rd, 4th and 5th will probably get Champions League football.
Almost certainly the 5th spot now.
Yeah, and so you're looking at Forest, Chelsea, City, Newcastle, maybe Villa, but because they're in the Champions League and we've seen their form this season, I'm not sure we can count them really. But that's 4 teams for 3 spaces.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of twists and turns. Aston Villa are very inconsistent. Newcastle showed second half against Forest, you guys saw it, that they're not the complete side yet. Look, we're 4th as we record this, right? We're 4th. There's no reason why we can't make there, right? My only concern has been how the record of performance levels since Boxing Day to where we are right now. The first third was good. The mid-third was pretty goddamn awful. If we can end the season something similar to how we started it, every chance of getting top 4.
Yeah, we absolutely have to. And I think our tough run of games at the start of the season, we actually came through pretty well. When we were playing against the bigger teams, there was less pressure on us. And the teams that we were expected to win, we then didn't. So maybe this second half of the season, I don't know if I'm clutching at straws there, but maybe these tougher run of games might just benefit us in the way that we want. But that is it. I'm so happy that we've done another episode of Inside Chelsea after a win. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. As always, if you want to get involved, post your comments below and we will do our very best to answer them. Thank you very much for your company, of course. Thank you to Jason. Thank you, Matisse. And we will see you next time here on Inside Chelsea. Up the Chelsea. Up the Chelsea.